the Army Band has allowed me to do a lot of different types of things. I'm very thankful for that. Again, going back to what the Army bands, or any of the military bands, really have this diversity of types of things that you can do. My career has been just that, not just in the band, but outside of the band. It has allowed me to have that diversity in musical styles and avenues, things that I wouldn't have been able to pursue otherwise.
Yeah, amazing. Hello, and welcome to the Orchestrating Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca for short, and I'm a clarinetist who studied at the Eastman School of Music and then went to London to get my master's and PhD, both at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. Having shifted pathways in my own life, I love hearing about the varied careers musicians can have and how they got there. And that's precisely what we're exploring in this podcast. As I sit down with music graduates to chat about their unique musical journeys, hear their hard-earned wisdom, and learn about how they're orchestrating their own careers. For today's episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Don Hoffman, a clarinetist in the United States Army Band Pershing's Own, and a piano accompanist. He did his undergraduate degree at the Philadelphia College of Performing Arts, spent a year at the Franz Liszt Academy in Budapest, Hungary, and did his master's degree at Temple University before going on to win a job in the Army Band. If you're curious about a career in military bands, specifically the Army Band, Don has so much to share. I was amazed at how diverse his job can be and the numerous roles an Army musician can play. Don describes how his position has grown and evolved throughout the almost 30 years he's been in the band, and he shares some really powerful stories about how the Army Band navigated through the national crises of 9/11 and the pandemic. As a piano accompanist, he also covers how he balances that alongside his clarinet playing. You're listening to Don playing Mozart's Sinfonia Concertante with the U.S. Army Orchestra under this intro, so stay tuned till the end of the episode to hear some more of this performance and to get a little snippet of his piano playing as well. And now let's get right into the interview. Hello, Don, and welcome to the Orchestrating Your Career podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you so much for coming on and your willingness to share your musical journey with us. And it's really cool to reconnect with you because I first met you actually when I was in high school, and you accompanied me on the piano for a solo competition I think I was recording at the time. And then I got to meet you as a clarinetist this time because I played once with the Army Orchestra, so that was really cool. It'll be really great to hear about all the different parts of your career. But before we get into all of that, I would love to just go back to the very beginning and hear how you first got into classical music, why the piano, why the clarinet, and how it all started for you.
Okay. My family was is very musical. My mother always wanted everybody to play piano. So pretty much everyone in the family was required to take piano lessons. Grew up in a very small town. Actually grew up on a farm. And
this was in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, okay. Yes. There was a lady in our hometown, Martha Geis, a lovely lady from church, taught almost everyone in town. So that's who we went to. She started me, I think it was around second grade on piano. Like I said, that was just something that we all did. And from an early age, I would say I took to it pretty well. And I think it was obvious to my mom that I had something there that was maybe a little different, where I was moving along at a quick pace, picked things up well. So continued with that up through into middle school, which is typically when you start a band instrument. And it came time to get into that. I was interested in playing in band. So what am I going to play? I don't know. My dad was a farmer. I actually didn't know him because he died when I was just a baby.
Oh, wow.
But he played clarinet as a young boy in like a boys band in town and had a clarinet. An old U.S. clarinet player, maybe you don't even know this system, it's called the Albert system, fingering system.
I don't know
different
if I
than the boom system.
Wow.
I couldn't tell you how it works now. But that was his instrument. That's what he played on. And my mom told me later, as a young kid, we would all pull it out just to look at it. And I was the only one that could make a sound. I don't know if it was a good sound, but I could make a sound on it.
A win is a win.
Yeah. So again, long story short, that was why it kind of just was decided, I'll try playing clarinet. So I actually used that instrument for my first year. The middle school band director was also a clarinet player. Taught me privately, on top of being in band, had to teach me totally different fingerings because of that.
Yeah.
And again, early on, it seemed like, okay, you have something here with music. You're progressing quickly. And at the end of that year, he talked to my parents and said, hey, if your son's going to continue playing, you need to get him a modern instrument because I can't keep teaching both ways. Plus, he's doing so well.
Yeah.
He really deserves to have a better instrument. They purchased a clarinet for me that in the end, I found out once I got to college that this was a really good horn. It wasn't just like, a standard student instrument. So my teacher picked well for me at the time. And it enabled me to, I think, again, progress even more quickly because I had a good instrument to play. So that's how I kind of got started on both. And I continued both of them pretty significantly all the way up through graduating high school. Taking lessons all the time and playing in, for choir, accompanying high school choir. I did all of the band and orchestra festivals that were possible up through and including all Eastern up in Massachusetts my senior year.
Could you then chat about what made you want to major in music? Like, how did you decide that this was what you wanted to do?
Well, the main reason was because I don't know how to do anything else.
I'm sure that's not true.
I played some Little League baseball. I had some other interests, but really the main thing throughout all of my high school years was all music. It was choir, it was band, it was playing piano, playing in church as well. So I really didn't have any other interests, and because I had an obvious, I took to it well, I had talent, that it seemed like the proper path to go. The reason why I stuck with clarinet was I didn't feel I had the facility as a pianist. I played well, but I knew I could never be a concert pianist, and I didn't want to teach. What else am I going to do with piano? Yeah. And I think more because there were more opportunities performing on clarinet that I was able to jump ahead, really leapfrog over the piano stuff, that it just seemed like the natural track that I would go into school for music on the clarinet.
And did you do a bunch of different auditions?
I took, I think, 2, maybe 3. Okay. I looked at 3 schools, I remember: Westchester University, Peabody, and then Philadelphia College of Performing Arts.
Which is where you went.
Correct. That audition went really well. Peabody went okay. I didn't get into Peabody, which sort of made the decision. And I don't think I ever actually auditioned for Westchester. So really it was Philadelphia and Baltimore, those 2 cities. And I really liked the idea anyway of I liked Philadelphia. One of my sisters and her husband were living there while he was in school doing his residency as a medical doctor. Oh, wow. Used to visit them and just loved going into that city.
Is it in the city?
The school? Yes. Okay. It's actually right on Broad Street, the Avenue of the Arts. The original school was in a different location, but in the 80s when I went, right next to the Academy of Music. It's also, I forget what the name is now. It used to be the old Schubert Theater, which was our building. It was the performing hall. It was like a Broadway theater. Amazing. But right there next to the Academy of Music, which was the place that the Philly Orchestra performed. Now they have the Kimmel Center, which I've honestly never been to. Yeah. That's pretty sad that I haven't gone back to watch the orchestra in their new venue.
But you got to go see them in their old one.
Yes, that was, again, one of the reasons why I was happy that it worked out for Philadelphia, because being right there in the city and having the arts, being surrounded by that, one of the coolest things we were able to do as students, well, actually, just general admission, but the students took advantage of it probably more than anybody else because we didn't have any money. Yes, I understand. The $2 tickets.
$2?
Yes. So you stand in line as maybe, 2.5, 3 hours, depending on if it was a popular concert, to be able to get those tickets. You'd stand by the green room door, and when it opened up, if you got in, you got in. If you didn't,
Wow.
better luck next time.
Amazing. I wonder if they still do something like that.
I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe it's up to $5 now because of inflation.
Well, yeah, true. Probably more than $5.
How was your experience at the college? What were your sort of goals, ambitions while you were studying in your undergrad?
Yeah. Again, mainly surrounding clarinet. That was my major performance. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play in an orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
So I took, obviously, clarinet lessons from a member of the Philadelphia Orchestra,
Mm-hmm.
Ron Rubin was his name. He was the bass clarinetist for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent teacher. And learned a lot about how I didn't have a clue how to play clarinet.
Again, I understand.
Yes, yeah. Everything changed in college for the better.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very intensive and a rewarding experience for me studying with him, playing orchestra, playing operas, being again in the city, having an opportunity to do some gigs, playing for some different schools that maybe didn't have enough clarinet players.
Mm-hmm.
Just doing side stuff. It was a lot of fun.
During this period of your undergrad, that's when you went to Hungary, or was it after?
It was after. So
Okay.
I mostly revolved around the clarinet, but I actually took some piano lessons while I was there. So I continued doing it.
As like a secondary instrument, or just sort of
Not
for fun?
On an official basis, but yeah, as a music student, everybody has to pass piano proficiency. So I went to the class the first day, and it's like,
I think I'm proficient on piano.
Yeah. So it may have been the first class. Maybe I went to a couple, and I went up to the teacher and asked, I've played for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Could I play for you? And is there a way that I could test out of this?
Yeah.
So I played for her and said, yeah, you don't need to go to the class. So she gave me lessons the rest of the semester instead of going to the class.
Mm.
And then at the end of the semester, I just took the test and passed.
Yeah.
And then throughout the next few years, with some friends that were a piano major or other faculty members, I would take a lesson here or there just for my own enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
I sang a lot. I did a couple of different groups in the school and outside the school. The man that led those, his name was Sean Divler.
Mm.
He was our choral director and led the Choral Arts Society and the music group of Philadelphia, which was a smaller chamber choir.
Mm.
I mentioned him because he was the reason why I ended up going to Budapest.
Oh.
He had studied there, was fluent in Hungarian.
Wow.
Talked about the music in that country and how it was so integral to everyday life, really.
Mm-hmm.
The Kodai system,
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And there was a handful of us that were really interested in experiencing that.
Yeah.
Because it sounded very cool, but also because, okay, we're graduating. What are we going to do now?
Yes.
I know I need to continue studying. Let's go over there. And at the time, it was still part of the communist bloc.
Oh, wow.
And very, very cheap for an American to go study. So we were part of the international program. All of us did multiple things. So we were there to study conducting, study the solfege, study our instruments. And for me, that meant clarinet, piano, and voice.
Oh, wow.
So it was very intensive. 2 lessons a week on each instrument,
Wow.
in addition to the classwork. And very quickly, I was starting to burn out because it was just too much. I couldn't keep up with the practice.
Yeah.
And the thing that I missed the most was the clarinet. So I knew clarinet's really that's my main focus, which it really was all along. But, I was feeling a little pull for different things maybe. And that was why I only stayed for a year instead of maybe the longer course to actually get a degree there. Contacted my teacher back in Philly, and that's what brought me back there to get my master's from Temple. Okay. But the year in Budapest was absolutely a highlight of my training. The country is gorgeous. Loved the people and just the architecture, the history of that city. The music is just everywhere. I have 5 major orchestras in that country, which is about, I'm not good with the geography, so what sizes it relate to, but not a large state.
Smaller than ours.
Yes. So just the amount of professional quality music there. It was just incredible. And my teacher was I actually had two different teachers. One that was mainly a soloist, played with the festival orchestra, and then the other guy played in the Philharmonic.
Okay.
Both great teachers. Great experience. Wouldn't have traded it for anything.
Yeah.
But I needed to come back home.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it quite an adjustment to go from that experience then to doing your master's at Temple?
Musically, no. It was still, the level was high. Expectations were high. Again, as a wind player, you probably know that there's differences in European playing from American playing. I think they're more blurred these days than they were decades ago. But I knew if I wanted to perform in the States, I needed to not be going a path that wasn't like the sound of what we were looking for here. Yeah. And that was for me, studying in Philadelphia was that kind of sound, very focused, and, not what is typically thought of in at least the older days of the European sound, which is darker and not a good center to the sound. Yeah. By our standards,
Yeah.
Different.
Just different, yeah. Yeah, I understand. And I'm just curious, because I guess both your undergrad then and then Temple were in the same city, but how was your experience during your master's at Temple different than your undergraduate experience? Or was it different?
It was slightly different, mostly because I didn't have as many regular classes. Yeah. I hadn't played bass clarinet or E flat up until then. And part of the agreement isn't the right word. Part of being accepted to Temple was that I was playing E flat for the concert band or concert band, wind ensemble, whatever. Yeah. I think it was like a grant. I was being able to pay for part of school by playing E flat. So different that I picked those instruments up. It was a larger school, obviously. College of Performing Arts is very small. Barely had enough to fill out the orchestra. At Temple, there were people on every instrument. Yeah. Too many to be able to work all the time. So and it just different atmosphere, I guess, just because there was a larger group of people. Similarities, or at least one, would be that the conductor of the orchestra in both places was a former member or current member of the Philly Orchestra from the string section, violist and then a violinist. So connections to the orchestra.
Yeah. Did you feel like your career goals were pretty much steady throughout that whole time, or did you feel like it was changing based on what you were learning or seeing?
Yeah, it was definitely the same. Like I said, going to Budapest, I was morphing a little bit, thinking about conducting, thinking about just, not maybe performing as an orchestra clarinetist, but deciding pretty quick over there that that's what I wanted. And so that was what I was fully pursuing when I came back. Still sang, paid rent by singing in certain churches. Yeah. Still played some piano, like side gigs and stuff. Clarinet was really the sole focus at that time.
So your master's was a couple of years? Or
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, master's in performance. As I was finishing that, again, so now what do I do? Yeah. I started taking some auditions. I started branching out a little bit more, playing with higher level groups in the area, in Philadelphia and the surrounding states, really, up throughout Pennsylvania into Jersey, down into Maryland, Delaware. So it was good from that standpoint, earning more money, getting more experience. But I never really felt comfortable with the idea that I would be like a freelancer and just stringing gigs together to earn a living. I wanted some security. Yeah, I need that orchestral job. And started taking auditions. Have no clue how many I took. Went a few different places around the country. The openings were there.
And these were all orchestra auditions?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was really the only thing I had thought of. At an audition, and I don't remember where it was, I ran into an old friend of mine who actually studied with the same teacher. He grew up in Philly. Okay. Studied with him, ended up going to Curtis. and then went into military band. And so I ran into him in an audition someplace, and we were talking, and he actually is the reason why I understood or started learning about military music and what that was, all the different special bands, the bands program in general.
So you hadn't really known about them before?
Not really. As most conservatory musicians, I would say, a lot of folks these days, I think it's more well known than it was back then.
Yeah.
But everybody knew the Marine Band because, hey, you don't have to do basic training. You know, the Marine Band.
The selling point.
Yeah. But that was really it. And exactly what they did, I don't know. But it was a full-time job. That was, was the main thing. But I still think, even at that time, I viewed it as like, okay, that's interesting. Still a stepping stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at that time, like I said, I had finished my master's, and freelancing, part of the freelancing was I started playing in a Curtis, which we've talked about before. I mean, that's an orchestral training school. That's really all it's about.
Yeah.
For an orchestral musician. Spent 3 years playing there.
So this was during the period of after Temple when you were taking auditions and everything.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And that Budapest and Curtis were absolutely the highlights musically. Experience better than anything I think I could have gotten anywhere else. So I'm very thankful for that. So I would still have my eyes set on that orchestral career.
Yeah.
And again, don't remember how many I took, but there weren't any auditions really that I would play well. Maybe not as well as I wanted to.
Yeah.
The bottom line is I never advanced in any audition. I'm pretty sure I got close in one because they kept asking me to play this again, play that again, try this. So they were interested, but didn't quite get there.
Yeah.
And I took a Marine Band audition, and I took the Army Band audition. And it was just part of, hey, this is another audition to take. Like I was thinking stepping stone kind of thing. And the Army Band was the one that I advanced for the first time, and then advanced to the final round and won.
And you won.
So obviously that was where I was meant to be then.
Yeah. So that was after the Marine Band audition.
I took the Marine Band first. And then actually, now that I'm thinking about it, when I said I ran into an old friend, so he was already in a military band. I was looking at that one. And then actually ended up in the band that in Pershing Zone, which I ended up having a career with. He was there just before I was because he won a position there. So we were able to work together for many years.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is very cool. Yeah.
Very nice, full circle.
Yep.
Could you just talk a little bit about that audition experience? Because I imagine it would have been a bit different than the orchestral ones.
It's different because the repertoire that they request is slightly different. And it will change over the years. There's always going to be the standard orchestral repertoire that everybody expects to play. But we always, of course, want to hear concert band repertoire as well. And solo works, just like an orchestral audition. For clarinet player, let me hear the Mozart. A lot of places will do something different these days because they're tired of hearing it. But that's pretty standard. So it's kind of the same as far as repertoire. These days, the way things are held, everything is blind. Yeah. You don't see anyone until the final interview round. So it's as equal as possible for everybody that's there to take the audition. The main difference would be, again, at that time when I took the audition, this was in 1994, you had to provide a full-length photo so they could see, like, you actually look like you could be within the standards, weight and all that kind of stuff. So, obviously they don't know your physical fitness until you go through basic. But once you are offered the position, if you win the audition, then you go through the MEPS process, which is the onboarding, going through to get yourself into basic training. So a lot of testing and information thrown at you. And that's really the first point where you start seeing, am I qualified, to serve? And those weren't any issues at all. But even though it's not part of the audition process, it's part of the process of being able to enter a performing career in the military.
Yeah. Could you talk a little more sort of about winning the position and that onboarding process, boot camp or basic training, how you sort of felt going into all of that and how it was?
Yeah. Well, initially I was extremely happy because, hey, I had a job, right?
Of course.
I never had an issue with physical fitness. I'm certainly not a fitness guru or anything, but I wasn't concerned about that part of it.
Yeah.
I didn't have any family members that had served.
Yeah.
My stepfather was in the Air Force, I think toward the end of World War II. And I had an uncle as well. My mother's brother served as a Navy chaplain. But I didn't really have much to draw on as far as what's the experience.
Yeah. Did you know other musicians who had been in any of the concert bands at that point? Or?
Only the friend that I've mentioned, who's another clarinet player. So I obviously did talk to him.
Yeah.
He gave me some heads up on certain things. And mostly what he would say is like, just bide your time. You're going to have to go through basic, and nobody's going to like it. Nobody likes basic training. And once you're done with that, then you're at the band, and it's all good. The process of getting into that, really, I wouldn't say I was nervous or anything. Didn't have any trepidation. Once I got there, because I left just after Christmas, I kind of got stuck in what they call reception, which they ship you off. You go to your basic training spot, and you don't actually start basic training until your squad is ready, your platoon or whatever. And I got stuck there for like more than 2 weeks because of the holidays.
Oh, no.
And then there was some weather-related stuff and whatever. So that was annoying. It was like being in prison because you couldn't do anything.
Oh, no.
You're just sitting there, like looking out the window. They would have some sergeants come and march you to get meals.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Wow.
So it wasn't any fun at first. And then the first day that we actually met our drill sergeants and officially started basic training, one of the worst days of my life.
Oh, no. Why?
They how do I describe it? There's a term called that they smoke you, which is it's physical and mental. They're just going to run you into the ground doing physical type stuff and yelling at you, and you're never good enough. And it was bad,
intense.
Yeah, very intense. Like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Is this the way it's going to be for the next 2 months?
But it got better.
Yeah, I think it's intended that it is intended, basic training,
front-loaded,
break you down as an individual, build you back up as a team.
Yeah.
And that resonates from a musician's standpoint as well. But the initial timing in there was not that great. But the longer you're in, you have a little bit more freedom, a little less pressure. There's always the pressure to do things properly and to learn new things and all that. But by the time you're getting close to the end, it's a lot easier and not so stressful. Yeah. Physically still demanding. Yeah. Because that continues to the last day. Yeah. And then you graduate. And then for most of the military, and this is one thing that's different about the special bands, once you finish basic, you go to your AIT, your advanced training. For the band, you immediately go to the band. You skip that because all of us have advanced degrees, at least a bachelor's, many have master's, doctorates. Yes. Yeah. We've completed the schooling, the training that we need to accomplish our duty with the band. Yeah. So they allow us to come straight in from that point. And you get to the band, and then it just feels a lot easier because I'm there to do what I need to do and actually get back to playing my instrument.
Yeah, because are you not playing at all during that whole period? Wow.
You do not have, it's all about Army training. Yeah. Yeah. Now, different services will treat it a little differently. I had a friend that was in the Navy band that said, he would practice almost every day. Wow. Like, wow, it must have been nice. I didn't have my instrument with me. Yeah, yeah. It wasn't terrible. It's 2 months, and it takes a little time to build yourself back up. But like anything else, it can be good to have a little bit of time away and start fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good for that.
Yeah. So from the time you won the audition to joining the band, what was the time frame?
The audition was in October. I went through all of the process to enlist right after that. No issues, whatever. So I actually left for basic, like I said, right after Christmas.
Okay, yeah.
And the basic training process and all of that worked out. So I got to DC with the band in March of 1995.
Okay. Not too long.
No. Can't complain.
Yeah. I would love to hear about your experience in the Army Band, how it's changed over the years, the sort of roles that you play, and what your job looks like.
When you first come in, what we typically tell folks is your main job is to, first of all, make sure that you have your uniform on properly. But
is that very complicated?
No.
Okay.
No, but just you're representing your country now. You're representing the Army.
Yeah.
You need to look proper, and that's drilled into you through basic. It's not hard. But really, the main thing you're concerned with is show up on time, be in the right place, and play as well as we know you can because we hired you for that purpose. That's all you really need to be concerned with.
Yeah.
The longer you're there, you become more senior. You know, you have plenty of opportunities for performing, do solo stuff, recitals, playing in band. Obviously, is the main thing. We do a lot of ceremonial work. It's a large part of the Army Band. We're based right next to Arlington Cemetery, so there's quite a bit of work there.
Could you sort of specify what a lot of those things are, and the different performances that you do?
Sure. So the unit itself, the Army Band, is around 250 personnel. So that includes support folks, the office personnel, HR. We have staging, we have lighting, we have audio. We have a lot of people that they're there. They may have a background in music. Some do, some don't. But that's their main duty. We have a concert band. We have a ceremonial band. We have strings that can form an orchestra with the concert band folks. We have a chorus. We have a pop rock group.
Very cool.
Yeah. And what am I forgetting? The blues, jazz band. Yeah. I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. We have a lot of different. We can do any style of music possible. Anything that any government agency would need from us, we can do it. So lots of different opportunities for doing varied styles of music. As a classical clarinet player, I'm not playing jazz. I'm not playing in the pop group. You know, so it's mostly concert band, which was what I was spent most of my career doing. And ceremonial. And the ceremonies are. The concert band obviously is what anybody would think. You're playing concerts, you're sitting down, outside concerts in the warm months, inside concerts during the cooler months. The ceremonial band throughout the year, their main duty really is, or what they would do daily, are playing for full honor funerals in Arlington Cemetery. That's the bread and butter of that job. You also have wreath layings at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers. You have arrival ceremonies for heads of state, prime ministers, presidents. Sometimes they are a really big official ceremony that takes place at the White House. Sometimes it's at the Pentagon. Sometimes it's there on Fort Myer. In different ways, locations that they do that. But those happen frequently. Retirements for the Department of the Army, retirements for general officers. Those are separate ceremonies. A lot of different types of things to do with that. And you see a lot of important, people from our government being in the DC area or from
other countries.
Our neighbors across the pond.
Yes.
So again, as a classical clarinet player, I've done a lot of both of those. Back when I came in, you were originally you're assigned to the ceremonial band. That's where you start when a position would come open. When somebody would retire from the concert band, and if you wanted, you could move over to concert band. Some people chose that route, but that's what I wanted to do. Some people chose to stay in ceremonial band because the schedule just worked better. Yeah, and they enjoyed that type of work. Ceremonial band is basically almost all during the day. Concert bands, we work during the day, obviously, but we also have weekends and evenings where that's when we play concerts.
I see. So if you're in the concert band, do you ever do ceremonial services as well?
Yeah, we're very interchangeable.
Okay.
Where the primary duty is what you're going to spend most of your time doing. But even, I'm basically at the end of my career now. But just yesterday and tomorrow I'll be out in the cemetery playing for full honor funerals. Actually, tomorrow I think I'm playing for retirement for a general. So we plug into ceremonial bands as often as needed. There's almost weekly that you'll find other members from either the jazz band, the blues, because they will do ceremonies as well, and the concert band. We're out doing those.
I would love to hear how, because I know you play in the Army Orchestra as like one of the ensembles in addition to the band. So I guess I'm curious how that happened, how you were able to do that. And then my follow-up question to that is like, out of all of the different diverse ensembles and concert settings, performance settings that you've done, like, do you have a favorite one? It doesn't have to be the Army Orchestra.
I'll have to think about that. I'm not sure. The orchestra itself it's an official ensemble, but it's not a full time, like it's always there. So the strings group of the Army band their primary function is doing strolling strings for like state dinners, quarters missions for VIPs, Chief of Staff of the Army, Chairman of Joint Chiefs, State Department, different things. And they do incredible work for that. Highest level visiting dignitaries that come over, and their White House is hosting them, and frequently our chorus does stuff like that. But mainly the strings are that's the intimate setting, the after dinner entertainment and stuff. And so that's their primary duty. But we frequently, and a lot of this depends on the current commander, who's our main conductor, and what types of things they want to do. Things morph over the years of the types of jobs that we do. But we form an orchestra, and it's mainly, obviously, the strings, and mainly concert band instruments that will fill out the wind instruments of the orchestra. And that's mostly just because ceremonial doesn't have like double reeds. They don't have a string bass player. The concert band does. We can add that into the strings. So I've been fortunate just over the years being asked, hey, we have an orchestra concert coming up in a month. Do you want to play? Some people wanted to do it. Some people didn't. I always did. And early on, it became known that this is something I always wanted to do. I became a regular. I wasn't officially designated principal because we don't have those designations. We have, because it's not an official full-time ensemble. I frequently played principal just because, not any real reason. We all kind of rotated in through those positions. I enjoyed doing that a lot. Again, we would play different types of music with the orchestra. Everything from jazz, rock orchestra, which is really fun. Doing like our own in-house arrangements of like Foo Fighters and
oh my gosh, so cool.
We have the downrange group, the pop rock group. We have two guys that do that arrange most of their things, and they do full-on orchestra versions of stuff. So some of the coolest things that I've done through my career musically is probably that. Nothing at all to do with how I was trained. It's just fun. Everybody loves just having a good time and listening to that kind of music. Clarinet parts, who cares? You can't even hear them. But I'm part of the group. It's so fun.
Exactly.
We've done those things. We've played, Mozart. We played Beethoven. Standard classical repertoire. It's not a large string group, so it's not a full symphony orchestra. It's more of a chamber orchestra. So a lot of the repertoire was probably more gauged towards that. So I got into it just because I kind of volunteered, and not everybody wanted to do it.
Yeah.
It's not required. And because I kept saying yes, I just did more of it than maybe some others.
Yeah. It's cool because I just remember in high school when I got the chance to play with them and with you, I just remember thinking I didn't know military bands had orchestras because it's like military band.
They
I was
all
like,
don't.
so this is the only one.
It's not the only one. All of the special bands, or I should say the presidential bands here in D.C., because there are some other bands that are designated special. And I don't mean that as a derogatory thing towards any of the rest of the military musical, band system. It's the official designator. It's regular and there's special.
Yeah.
Special bands are set apart because it's audition only. It includes the academy bands, so like West Point Naval Academy. It includes the field band up in Fort Meade that does all the touring for the Army.
Yes, yeah.
Recruitment touring. And it also includes the Fife and Drum Corps. And there are probably some others, this isn't an exhaustive list.
No, not at all.
But all of the DC bands, at one point, they were all formed as just a band.
Yeah.
And they did concerts and they did ceremonies. And then over the years, as they're trying to branch out and provide different things, whatever the government would need us to do, you start bringing in different types of musicians.
Yeah.
And that kind of evolved over the years. You can go through the history of the Army Band on our website and see when each group was formed and what maybe their initial reasons for that were. So the strings, I think every group at one point had them. I know the Air Force still does, the Marines still do, and we do. I'd say the Marines and us probably do, I think we do more orchestral than the Air Force does. I could be wrong on that. The Navy did have strings at one point. This is secondhand knowledge, just what I was told. There was an unfortunate tragedy on a trip that I think a plane went down or something. They lost their string players. And in memory of that, they never reconstituted their strings. So with the exception of the Navy band, we all have some strings. And then you don't think of chorus being in a band. You don't think
so like singers, string players, you could go into these too. It's not just flute players.
Absolutely. All styles of music. Pretty much any instrument. We don't really have room for like a didgeridoo. Okay. Something like that. And you never know. And actually, I can't believe I just used that as an example because we did it.
Did you?
One of our trips many years ago, we went to Australia to perform in an international tattoo. They call it military tattoo. And, of course, there were didgeridoo performers over there.
Wow.
And one of our tuba players was really interested in that and actually bought one while we were there, brought it back to the States.
Wow.
And in one of the large similar types of things we used to do here called Spirit of America, it was a large review in like down at the Cap Center or something. They included a piece where he would play the didgeridoo as like a lead into whatever we were doing. So we have actually used it.
Clearly, every instrument is on the table.
There you go. We'll find a use for it somehow.
That's cool. That's fun because it feels super varied. And I think maybe some people, when they look at the military bands, they feel like all you're doing is doing one thing, possibly. Right. But actually, it sounds pretty diverse.
It is, and I think that's one of the benefits of this job. You get to do lots of different types of things.
Yeah.
Depending on which group you're in, you may travel, you may be overseas, you may be assigned to a unit that gets actually deployed and goes over with, like when we were in Iraq or in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We have a band over in Germany. There are different types of bands throughout the whole program. But there's lots of different opportunities to do lots of different types of things. But even just within our unit, as you were saying, there's such a diversity of the types of music and performances.
Yeah, and like the settings that you're in. Yeah.
That's a very big selling point. The other really big selling point as a performing musician is security. And knowing that your job is stable.
Yeah.
You can look at even some of the top orchestras in the country that from time to time have financial issues.
Yeah.
Now our government has financial issues,
Yes.
but it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's not just about that we're performing musicians. We're serving our country.
Yeah.
In uniform, we have a duty to that. So there's not really a worry about, hey, is my job going to be here 5 years from now?
And I think that's always been a real concern in the classical music industry, but I think especially coming off of COVID and what happened with that and the effect of that on the arts and music. Could you sort of just touch on what that time period was like for you guys, how that affected you?
Yeah, that was huge. We have many folks that have come in during COVID or right after COVID, and every single one would talk about that as a big selling point for military music, and what maybe drew them in at that time. So, like everywhere, everything shut down.
Yeah.
We weren't performing anymore. We learned real quick how to pivot, as many organizations did, to an online presence. Figured out ways of recording,
concerts
with the social distancing. We didn't do like large concerts, but we had plenty of events that we would record in-house in our hall, being able to spread out with a smaller group and still be putting out product to engage the public and to, again, serve the country, but inspire and tell the Army story.
Yeah.
We, when it first started, it took a little bit to pivot to that. It didn't take very long, but for a while I was like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And one of the other things that we were able to do when we weren't performing in those capacities and recording was assisting it around the area, especially with the military district of Washington, and what else can we do outside of our musical lane. So we assisted with the on-base commissary.
Oh, wow.
When they would stay open to basically be crowd control, and so we would be outside and helping them keep only a certain number of people in the store. We helped with the on-base clinic and folks that were coming in for their pharmacy orders were at park and hand delivering stuff.
Wow.
So nobody would be going inside certain locations, keeping the crowds to a minimum. We did things like taking temperatures of folks getting the headquarters building on Fort McNair.
Wow.
We had a group there, and we would rotate. It wouldn't be the same group of people all the time. But those were other ways that we could still serve and get something done that needed to be done when we weren't able to do our main duty.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear you just getting in there and helping out wherever's needed, even when it's not what you were expecting to do when you first entered the band.
Well, and obviously it was a little scary for many because nobody really knew what was going on and how dangerous this was. And
you're there on the front lines.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some were more worried than others, but it worked out in the end. Everything was fine.
Yeah.
With how we were able to continue to serve in that capacity. In similar fashion, after 9/11, because I was in the bands when that happened. We actually were having auditions that day for Clarinet. To keep the story short, everything shut down at that time too.
Yeah.
Nobody knew how long that was going on. Different than COVID, especially from the length of it.
Yeah.
But for a while, we were shut down from performing as well. And one of the things that we were able to do was assist in the recovery effort at the Pentagon.
Wow.
Obviously, we weren't going into the building. We're not trained to do those things. We weren't going to be in danger.
Yeah.
But it was a simple thing of we need people to check IDs.
Yeah.
Actually make IDs for FBI, emergency folks, intelligence officials, whoever needed to go in and be part of the recovery effort at the Pentagon. We were out there and and taking pictures and
Yeah.
seeing are you armed or you're not, what's your purpose of being here, and what agency you're with, and then presenting them with an ID so they could go in.
Yeah.
But being right there on site, days after it happened, was a very poignant moment in my career for sure.
Yeah.
But it enabled us to be able to serve in a capacity that was needed, even though it was not our primary duty.
Mm-hmm.
And then the really cool thing after that, we had already put in our schedule. We were going to play up in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the next month after 9/11. And we thought, just like everything else, we might not be doing it now, probably canceled. Real quick, the powers that be said, no, we need to do this.
Yeah.
We were all on board. Yeah, we want to go play.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the biggest musical highlights of being able to be part of that uniting DC and New York from this tragedy.
How special.
Playing music and an overwhelming response from the crowd is patriotic and helped in the healing process. The day after that concert was a Sunday at Ground Zero Trade Center. They had ongoing Sunday morning worship services, and they asked us to be part of that. Again, that was between working right at the Pentagon and then doing that, being able to play as part of the service. It was more like a ceremony. We stood up there right next to the rubble and have all the construction workers and whoever basically just crying, as we're playing Amazing Grace or whatever we played, very, very cool time not cool because of the circumstance, but just using the power of music to touch people in both those capacities.
Yeah, it's really powerful. Thanks for sharing that. That's really cool, because I think when you instantly think of military bands, I don't know if you think of those kinds of instances, but actually serving your country in like multiple different ways, like musically and also just physically and in like different capacities. It's amazing. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, you've talked a lot about it. I guess if there's just anything you want to draw out in addition to anything you've already said of like the more challenging parts of this part of your career, or things that maybe were challenges but aren't so much anymore.
Any job's going to have challenges. The thing with the Army bands, I would say there's physical and mental challenges. It's not all about playing. You have the longer you're in, you have other duties, collateral duties, not absolutely required, but kind of expected. As you get promoted and have more rank, that you're now in charge of others. You need to take ownership of that and just be a little more plugged in, not just about you playing your instrument. And
is that just kind of added on top of everything you were doing before, or is it sort of like let go of other things as you take on other responsibilities?
It's mostly together. Okay. You have more to do. It's not all about just playing your horn like you would if you were in any other musical organization. So for a long time, you're kind of doing both. When you get toward the end of your career, if you've been promoted up through the ranks and you potentially take over what we call like a group leader or an element leader position, there's even more management of personnel and production and programming and things like that that do require a bit more time than is possible to devote enough to that and to playing. There are some positions that people move into and they say, I've done what I wanted to do. I'm playing. I'm going to put that aside. I'll do that for my own fun. But as far as my duty here, I'm just going to concentrate on this. That can happen. For me, I went up to element leader at the concert band, so I was in charge of that whole organization. I still played in the group, but I moved from always sitting, always playing first clarinet. That was what I started doing back in 2000. I think it's 2000, long time ago. I told the guy who was in charge of the clarinet section, like, look, I've been happy to have been able to play those parts for so long. But at this point, with all the other duties I have, not that I'm not going to keep my chops up, but there are others that need to be sitting up here. So just rotate me wherever. Put me in the seconds, put me in the thirds, I don't care. So I didn't have that extra concern about pressure.
Yeah.
Playing the high stuff, playing any solo parts, anything like that.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest difference that you get in that kind of career, where as you move up, you start having more responsibilities that can take a little bit away from the time you have to devote to your instrument.
Yeah. Could you talk a little more about that, what those look like and how you sort of get slotted into different positions? Because it seems like these things aren't really musical things, and you didn't sort of have background or training doing those things. So how did you equip yourself with the skills to be able to take on these roles?
Well, as in short, as in anything, the Army trains you to do what you need to do. A lot of that comes from your colleagues, from your predecessors.
Yeah, so they just pass it down.
Passing it down, yeah. It's all on the job training.
Yeah.
We can. There are opportunities to us to do coursework. There is even opportunities that you could go away for schooling or something. Typically, with our unit, we don't do that. We have some great courses that are taught by our own folks that have gone away maybe to do that, and now we can train anybody to do anything that is needed for us. Again, the Army will train you to do whatever, and you'll learn a lot from your predecessors. A lot of what the management focuses on is the day-to-day procedures. It's still related to music. It's setting up rehearsal times, doing rehearsal orders, figuring out programming. What theme do we want to have for this concert? What
that's cool.
Put on there.
So have you been doing that? You've been programming concerts and stuff.
I have a hand in it. I never. So we have folks that are very knowledgeable and just naturally good at that.
Yeah.
So those are the people that I look to as the the leader of the group.
Yeah.
I have a team that works on that. I have a production team. I have a programming team. I have a logistics and budget team.
Wow.
I have a training team.
And these are all musicians.
All musicians. They're all playing in the ensemble. So they're there on a daily basis and know all the ins and outs of what we are doing, which helps to be able to craft what their collateral, especially duty is. So a lot of it is still music related. It's not like you're not playing when you're doing those things, but it's still related to the performing. The other aspect it would be just the required Army type stuff. So we have to maintain physical fitness. We have to maintain. We all have security clearances. We have to maintain the coursework to keep ourselves current with that. There's a lot of different programs that the military requires of you. That we have people like suicide prevention, sharp training, equal opportunity, different things like that. Those all have to be scheduled and we have to make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. So that part of being in a leadership position, you're responsible for just coordinating it and making sure everything's happening as it should. We have evaluations, which is a large part of how you get promoted in rank. Over the years, you're looked at more as a senior person. Are you displaying the type of qualities? Are you doing the type of things within your primary duty playing? But are you also maybe starting to do some other stuff to help the entire unit, not just your very short lane here? Or narrow lane, I should say. So all those things lend into, do you look good for maybe promoting to the next level to move into more of a leadership capacity? So that evaluations play a large part of that. As the leader, almost all of those flow through the senior leaders of each group. we have a responsibility to ensure that folks are contributing, and responsibility to helping them develop them and mentor them.
Yeah.
Not just in their playing, but in regular Army type stuff.
Yeah. That's amazing. I really appreciate you sort of digging into that and sharing that, because I think for a lot of musical careers, the perception can be that you just go in and you're just playing your instrument, playing the repertoire, and like that's amazing and what a gift to be able to do that. But I think if some people are unaware of these opportunities to develop other areas or get involved in things just a little more outside of just playing their instrument, to know that that's available and that there's like on-the-job training and things in the Army band, I think is really cool. Yeah, I don't know how well known that is about the military bands.
If you ask, I mean, if someone's interested, they're in that part of their life where they're looking at a career, and obviously there's plenty of military musicians to hit up on it for information.
Yeah,
you'll learn pretty quick, and it goes beyond what we've already talked about. As far as the Army, you can do tons of different types of physical type stuff if you're interested in getting an expert soldier badge. Yeah, it's mental and physical type testing. There's a whole wide range of things. I'm not going to do things probably like jumping out of airplanes.
Right.
Some folks might, because
not required.
No, it's not. It's certainly not required. And we may, even want to discourage that.
Yeah.
Because, hey, you need to protect your hands, your mouth.
Whatever. The money makers.
Yeah, exactly. This is your duty. But the point is, you can do so much with an Army career. There's hundreds of different vocations in the military, even though we're there to play our instruments or to sing whatever in the band. That's not all you're not stuck with just doing that. If you have other interests, there's a wide range of things that you can do, expand your horizons. And hey, Army career is going to end at some point. You can't stay forever. If you have interests in something totally different, you can get training through the military to do that post-career.
Yeah.
A lot of people take advantage of those things.
Yeah, and that would be a really good segue to what's coming up next for you. But I do really want to cover, before we get to that, the other side of your career. Because I first met you with your pianist hat on and you were accompanying me. So how did you get into playing piano more, or like the accompanist angle of your career? And how has that been balanced with... Because it sounds like you're doing a lot with the Army band. So I'm like, how on earth are you balancing and managing everything?
Getting started with doing all the piano stuff, I can't really point to a specific thing. Like I can't say I went after it. Like I was pursuing doing all these things that I do now. It was kind of just a natural outgrowth of having training and talent in being able to do certain things, and an interest in just continuing to do that. And it just kind of built up over the years. So we've talked before, when I first came to DC, I got involved in our church, and loved the opportunity to be able to use God-given talents to serve in that capacity. First started playing in the orchestra on my clarinet, because that was natural. We needed a clarinet player. At some points, the pianist that played with the orchestra decided she wanted to pull back a little bit. And somehow, I was like, hey, I can play, and
stepping in.
Yeah. And it just kind of, it snowballed from there. Through my years there, so I started playing piano regularly with the orchestra. We have a full orchestra and a full choir. Large musical worship service, as you know. So starting out in that capacity, when the main pianist at the church retired, it enabled me to be able to do that as a part-time job, just playing the piano, knocked off the other administrative duties, hired another person to do all that. And I've been doing that I've been playing piano for about 25, 26 years for them. And through my years probably of playing more and more piano for the church and obviously regularly accompanying choral stuff there. Yeah. And I did that in high school.
Yeah.
Accompanying choir.
Yeah, right.
So it wasn't something new. Somehow it morphed into the friends of mine at work probably say, hey, I've seen a student that needs to accompany,
happens a lot in this area.
There's lots of opportunities for young budding students, such as yourself. Back in the day when you got a competition or an audition or whatever, the solo ensemble festival thing, I just started doing them a little bit here and there. And again, it's just snowballs. And I had more students than I could physically
high in
take.
Demand.
Just didn't have enough time because of my job with the Army.
Yeah.
It was relatively easy to be able to do both because the accompanying stuff can make up your own schedule. And it was always after work hours in the evening when I didn't have concerts, when I didn't have rehearsals, or having to do ceremonies, whatever. And I was always able to do both because it's not a full-time job. It's just a side thing. Yeah. Before my wife and I had children, it was a lot easier because there weren't as many things to get involved in.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was
kids
up and down.
Changed the game.
But still was able to continue doing it up until COVID. That stopped everything again. I've never wanted to teach like full-time on clarinet or piano. I don't mind. I enjoy being able to assist young musicians from the piano, especially particularly clarinetists, because I understand the instrument. But any wind instrument, there's a lot that can translate. And I've played brass. I've played saxophone. I've played different instruments, so I can help them in addition to just sitting here and accompanying. Yeah. But even beyond that, especially now, like with vocalists, I do a lot of choral accompanying outside of church as well. I'm able to help them just with music and phrasing, breathing, all of those kind of things. Yeah. And I don't have to get into the nitty-gritty like you normally would have in a lesson where we're nitpicking about how to finger something or whatever problems you're having with your instrument. Teacher handles that. Yeah. We're just talking about the fun stuff.
Nice.
So I don't mind doing that. It's been a good path for me.
Yeah. Well, I think just from my memory of when you accompanied me, it was really nice to have a pianist who was also a clarinetist who like really understood the repertoire. You could talk more about just, you could do more than, like you're saying, than just play the piano part.
Can speak to the clarinet side of things and how the approach
it was like double win for me. Yeah. I feel like it's cool to see how you brought these different pieces into your own career of pursuing your interests and like what you're comfortable with and the things that you want to do, and like being able to bring the different pieces in that allow you to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Looking back on what I set out to do from college and where I ended up, I'm so thankful I ended up where I did. Yeah. I feel true that God led me into this place because it allows me to do these things we're talking about. Yeah. I'm able to serve as often as I want in my church, which is basically weekly. Yeah. Play piano. I was able to sing and doing different things over the years. Whereas if I had a job in Philadelphia Orchestra, I wouldn't be able to do those things as much. It'd be a lot more difficult, for sure. So I like, again, going back to what the Army bands, or any of the military bands really, we have this diversity of types of things that you can do. My career has been just that, not just in the band, but outside of the band. It has allowed me to have that diversity in musical styles and avenues that I wouldn't have been able to pursue otherwise.
Yeah, amazing. It's really cool to hear that perspective. But sort of looking back, maybe particularly before, like maybe right before you won the audition, were there ever times when you were thinking, maybe music isn't for me, why am I doing this? Or like when you were auditioning for things and weren't winning auditions, did you ever think maybe I should try something else?
I'm sure there are those moments, especially, as you're going home from a loss in an audition, that like, what am I doing with my life? you're miserable.
So what kind of made you take the next audition? Keep trying.
I didn't have an interest in doing anything else. I didn't really know what else to do with my life, so to speak. If I would have had something else I was interested in doing, maybe I would have gone that path. I don't know. It's not like I spent years. Some people have taken 100 auditions before they get a job. I don't know if I could have stayed that long. I have no idea, but it wasn't that long for me. I was blessed to get a job relatively quick while I was still relatively young. So in that capacity, it worked just fine for me. I don't remember having any points where I was like, this isn't for me anymore. I've always loved being involved in music.
Well, and it seems like from what I've been hearing, you've just been able to sort of take on different opportunities, even when they weren't your first expected. Like the army band, like maybe wasn't your first expected career option because you were more thinking orchestral. But then it worked out, and then you're able to take on all these other opportunities that came with it. And then like with the accompanying, just bringing it in, as like the opportunities came for you.
It's been I can't complain. It's been a good career. The Army Band has allowed me to do a lot of different types of things. I'm very thankful for that. Knowing that this career is coming to an end, because I do other things, I'm not thinking about, well, what am I going to do with my clarinet now? I will still play, but I don't have a desire to now I'm going to try and freelance and play with orchestras again. I did some of those things, especially early on in my career, when I had extra time, when we weren't performing with the bands, just doing freelancing, playing with different orchestras. I played downtown with Kennedy Center. I played up in Delaware Symphony. I've played different places and been able to do some of the highest level orchestral playing. So I've kind of, I wouldn't say accomplished everything I wanted to do, but I've done some of that. That was great. I don't have a desire that, no, I have to do that now. I want to be able to continue playing piano. Piano was my first instrument, as you know, and it's still my first love. I love playing clarinet. I don't like the maintenance of keeping it up.
It's hard.
You're keeping your embouchure. If I haven't played piano for 2 weeks, I sit down, I can play. It doesn't matter.
What a dream.
Now, I'll get tired and I can't maybe play as well as I would like, but I know I don't have an issue. Whereas if I didn't play a clarinet for 2 weeks, I don't even know if I could find a reed that would work.
Exactly.
So it's a lot easier for an instrument as you start. Maybe I'm not old yet, so I'm not slowing down per se, but doing a little less stressful type of schedule with music that I can maintain what I would like to do on the piano indefinitely and not have that stress of trying to keep it up all the time.
Could you talk about what's coming up next for you? Because I wonder if people, when they think about military band jobs, if they just sort of think about the entry point of like getting in. And I don't know if I certainly haven't really thought much about what you do at the end of it and sort of how you get out of, or like, how you end and like what you do with your career and all of that. So if you could talk about that, that'd be great.
I mean, there's not one set path, obviously. It can be as varied from, hey, I've reached a certain point in my life and my spouse has a great job and is going to do that for a long time. I don't need to work. I can do volunteer work or something. Or it can go from that to another person that, hey, I've had a career playing this instrument for 30 years and I've got all these connections and I've networked and now I'm freelancing every weekend. I'm playing in Baltimore Symphony or I'm playing in National Symphony or whatever. Playing for musicals or just playing like I have a connection to a wedding band or a jazz band. I do those things every weekend. So you're keeping up your playing stuff. So people don't want to play anymore. They've done everything they set out to do and it's enough. For me, like I said, it's good that I have the piano as my first love, and I will be happy to be able to continue doing that for as long as the Lord allows. the process of leaving military. So for the bands, you go in as enlisted. If you want to go the officer route, you can. If you're accepted into the program, you become an officer. They are the conductors, and they will transfer wherever the Army needs them. And eventually, most of them make their way through the special bands here in DC. For the playing musicians, if you want to play your instrument, you're enlisted. You come in as a senior NCO and can be promoted up through sergeant major. But you max out at 30 years. So the career ends at a certain point, like any job, but you can't do it indefinitely, like some vocations you could. If you're principal clarinet in a major symphony, you literally can die playing your instrument, before it's time to go, or you just can't do it anymore. So there always has to be, and when you first come in, you're not going to think about it. Who would? Like, well, what am I going to do 30 years from now? But the longer you stay in and you start thinking about what do I want to do next, and you can start planning for that by maybe taking some coursework outside of the military or within the military. There are plenty of opportunities to get trained on different types of skills. If you're interested in law, you can intern and start working on a law degree. Wow. And that's maybe not normal, but that's certainly a possibility. They have a program that's called Skill Bridge, which you do as you're transitioning out of the military. You spend the last number of months, whatever the program is set up to do, maybe even up to 6 months at the end of your career, where you're no longer doing your primary duty anymore. You're assigned to go to school and learn this stuff in the military. We'll pay for that in assistance for your transition out of the military.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Anybody that's getting out, no matter what you're going to do, you have to go through, just like you have to go through an onboarding process, you have to do an offboarding process. That's not the technical term for it. But
right. Okay.
The Transition Assistance Program, TAP, is what it's called. So cute. We all have to go through briefings, coursework, learn about all the things that you have to do to transition to civilian life. For some folks, especially younger ones that maybe aren't retiring but getting out early, a lot of that revolves around what's your next career, because you definitely need to continue working on not speaking Army anymore, but speaking civilian.
It's a whole nother language.
Maybe getting a wardrobe, because you've only worn a uniform up to this point. Working on your resume, different types of stuff. So there's a ton of information. It's out there for everybody. You have to kind of glean from that what works for you and decide how you want to use that to your benefit.
Yeah, that's really, it's amazing to hear. It just sounds like there's a lot of support every step of the way. And that's really encouraging to hear, because I feel like a lot of times in any career, I'm sure, you might not feel like you have any idea what you're doing or like what comes next or how to transition from one point to another. So to have that support built into the system sounds amazing. Yeah,
certainly, as I mentioned before, with even earlier in your career, the Army provides you pretty much everything that you need. Is it exactly the way you want it to be done? Maybe it's not for everybody. It's a different type of atmosphere than playing in civilian classical orchestral work. But it's still rewarding. And you get a lot of musical reward out of it. You get a lot of serving your country, and just engaging the public in a different manner. Obviously, a lot more. I'm not saying orchestras aren't patriotic, but that's our performances more revolve around that than playing Mahler symphonies. Just a different style of engagement with the public.
Cool. That's been incredible. Thank you so much for going into all of that, and just being willing to share so many of your experiences and background and knowledge about everything you've been up to. I think it'll be really informative and hopefully really useful for people listening. So thanks for that. I thought it would be fun just to finish off with a really quick sort of off the top of your head rapid fire question and answer session. It can be how you feel in this moment. It doesn't have to be long lasting, like the answer you give now will haunt you, years down the line.
It'll be on your podcast forever.
But it can be just how you feel today, So, who is your favorite composer today?
Mahler comes to mind just because he was my favorite for
Can never go wrong with Mahler. Yeah. How about your favorite piece of classical music?
Either Berlioz' Symphonie Fantastique or Mahler's Second Symphony.
Both amazing options. Do you have a favorite movie soundtrack?
That's a good one. Any John Williams one, probably.
Yeah.
Outside of John Williams, the one that sticks in my head is Gladiator.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Really good theme.
Name's escaping me right now, the composer, but the music in that movie was incredible.
I can't remember either, but it does come up on my shuffle occasionally, so I should know. Okay, that's a good one. What genre of music do you listen to most of the time? Your go-to? It's
not a good question to ask me because I don't really listen that much anymore.
Really?
To be honest, yeah.
So you appreciate silence?
I don't know. I used to be nonstop listening to. I have a wall of CDs and used to have records. I don't anymore.
Yeah.
I had tons and tons of recordings. I was always listening to stuff. It was part of training and listening to how this performer or that performer, and it was 99% classical, like rock and jazz and different type stuff as well. But yeah, over the years, I've kind of really gotten away from listening a lot. I can't say that's good. It just is what it is.
I think it's neutral.
Yeah. I mean, if you're driving in your car and listening to something, I don't usually listen to music. I'll have the news in the background or something.
Yeah. Some more speaking stuff that you listen to. Or
maybe.
Yeah.
I don't really listen to much of anything on a regular basis.
Fair enough. I mean, you hear a lot in general on the job. So
I have music in my ears every day, regardless.
Are you currently reading anything?
Aside, I do daily devotion. Always reading my Bible. Not as much as I should.
Yes, never as much as I should.
I'm not reading any novels or anything at this point. Things that I've always been interested in, always were fun, like the summer read was the old Tom Clancy movies, or books, or Brad Thor, like kind of suspense thriller, military, government, conspiracy theories.
Very cool. Okay. I don't know if I should ask this because you just said you don't listen to that much, but what was the last thing you did listen to? If you can remember.
Oh, it had to be in a piece of band music.
Yeah, that you're playing coming up or something.
Yeah, or both of my daughters are involved in music in college. The younger is definitely all in on band. She plays euphonium. So I hear her playing excerpts, but it's some of the repertoire that she's played in school.
Yeah.
And talking about that with her. So probably a piece by Granger or McAfee.
Nice.
I don't really remember.
No, that's good. Who's a musician that you admire?
Absolutely, my teacher from college. Fantastic person, phenomenal player, great teacher. Getting into the nuts and bolts of stuff and not allowing anything to just, that's good enough. Aside from him, I mean, there's a wide range of great musicians. As a clarinet player, Harold Wright, former principal of Boston Symphony, and both of these gentlemen, Ron Rubin was my teacher. So the two of them have both passed. But I think a lot of my love for the sound of clarinet and what I've always desired how to play is Harold Wright.
Wow. It's a good one to admire.
Yeah.
And the last one, if there is one sort of book, movie, song, podcast, piece of music, just one sort of resource that you feel like someone should go check out right now, what would it be?
That's a tough question.
It is. Can be anything. An article, a video.
For like a young music student, you mean, or just anybody?
Yeah, or I mean that or anybody, if something comes to mind. Could be either. Could be both.
I will always default to the Bible.
That's a great one to default to.
I mean, that for me is the daily source of wisdom. If we're talking about, just music, I don't have any particular novel or textbook or something like that, but just reading about lives of musicians and what inspired them. Maybe certainly reading just the general historical biographies and things like the Grove Dictionaries for music. These are standard things everybody knows. I don't know.
That's good. I think those are two very good answers. I think just to finish off, if there was a final thought or a final piece of advice that you would give to a young musician looking at entering conservatoire or exiting, or like to your younger self or something like that, what would that be?
Practice.
Drill it into your head.
Yeah. I think one of the things, and it hit home when I was speaking. I used to do a lot of educational outreach as part of our woodland quintet and to colleges and universities. And
Amazing.
Speaking to a studio, clarinet studio, thinking about as a young student, like the time that you have now while you're in conservatory, university, whatever, you're never going to have this kind of time ever again to really work on your craft.
Yeah.
And to use that time wisely. And your teacher knows you better than anybody else. That needs to be always your first. Get yourself a good teacher. But that's the person that will be able to assist you the best. But be willing or able, whatever, to reach out and find other sources. So, like I was saying, when I went to Europe, and it's a different style of playing over there, but I learned things there that I wouldn't have gained that helped me in maturing my sound and my musical knowledge if I had just studied here. It doesn't mean it's for everybody, but I think the ability to have different viewpoints and taking different kind of styles and things and incorporating that, you can get a true representation of who you are then through your playing, and not just mimicking somebody else.
Yeah.
And if you're stuck on just one thing, then you're probably going to sound like that one thing. But definitely using the time that you have in school to work on your craft, because once you get your job, and hope that everybody that wants one gets one, you'll have time certainly to work on those things. But at that point, you're really, you need to already have those things set, and you're going from one performance to the next, and really just maintaining. And it's harder to I think maybe gain in your playing as it was when you were in school.
Yeah. So use the time wisely.
Yeah.
Great advice. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Everything you said has been so helpful, really encouraging and inspiring. But I think especially everything you had to share about the Army Band and your experience in it. And I think just shedding more light on the organization and what it means to be a musician in it has been really, for me, it's been really illuminating. So hopefully for others it will be too. But yeah, really cool to hear about. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Orchestrating Your Career podcast, and a big thank you to Don for sharing his story. I loved learning more about the Army Band that I hadn't known before, and I hope you did too. The resources mentioned in this episode are all linked below. You can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms, as well as get more frequent updates on Instagram. To watch videos of all the episodes and get extra behind-the-scenes content, check out the YouTube channel Orchestrating Your Career. Subscribe so you don't miss anything, and look out for new episodes on the 1st and 15th of every month. Next episode's conversation will be with Lucy DeSano, another clarinetist in a military band, but we'll hear about her experiences in the United States Marine Band, as well as her work as an arranger and conductor. Until next time, I'll let Don's clarinet and piano playing end the episode. So take it away, Don.
Josh, I've moved up from chopsticks. It's really hard to talk and play. I'm playing with my partner here, Staff Sergeant Don Hoffman. Okay, I'm not really playing, but you were about to be impressed, weren't you? I'm gonna let his real partner sit in here, Sergeant Major Bob Smith. I've got 5 teams of pianists. We're calling it the Piano Assault Team. Actually, it's a part of an amazing concert that the U.S. Army Band's gonna be putting on. We're gonna tell you all about it coming up on Fox 5 Morning News, so stay with us.